So here we have Virginie Costa, Chief Financial Officer of GODIVA. You do have GODIVA chocolates there. I'm sure you are all familiar with them and will be pleased to eat them later tonight. She actually confessed that she eats chocolate every day. I don't know if I believe that, but okay. Dan Neumann, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the leading hotels of the world. This is a company that does the sales, marketing, distribution, and support for more than 400 hotels worldwide. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Fantastic. And then we also have Roberto Simon. He is the Chief Financial Officer of WEX, which is the company that does the back office operations as well as all the payments internationally, et cetera, for a wide variety of companies, including Expedia, which has got them talking heatedly. Am I getting that correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about how the role of the CFO has changed. And I want to talk about, Virginie, let's start with you. What's been the biggest day-to-day change for you over the past 5 years in your role as CFO?
Thank you, Lisa. I think one of the biggest change for me has been, and after almost 15 years in a CFO position in global customer brands, I think the biggest change is the data and how data has changed everything in everyday's lives, not just for individuals, but as well as for professionals. And for CFO specifically, there are so many data points now that I want to be a little provocative. And I want to say that the CFO for me is the new COO to some respects, and get to act actually as an enabler and a connector of all these data points in order to drive performance now. Long gone are the days of retroactive reporting. Now it's all about how all this data will drive the performance for tomorrow. And especially in global customer brands, and at GODIVA, we have a very ambitious plan. We want to grow 5-fold our revenue over the next 6 years. Data is really enabling how we look at what the customer is looking for and how they're behaving.
Dan, what about you? What's your biggest day-to-day change?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest change has been privacy, GDPR. I work very closely with our general counsel who sits in as our privacy officer as well. And being a global company, even though we don't own our hotels, it's incredibly important for our hotels to know that we're compliant with all of the privacy laws, the regulations that are constantly changing. And it's unfortunately, in a way, it's become a big part of the job that I have to do on a daily basis as well.
Roberto?
Well, for me, first of all, changing from consumer goods and moving not to a technology provider, and being in a completely different space. You know, if I look on the past 8 years being a CFO in 3 different organizations, what has been is interesting is moving from, being with the audit committee, talking about accounting, changes in rules and regulation on the accounting side.
Where were you before? Just wanted to say.
I was in Revlon Cosmetics.
Okay.
Yeah, and then before that I was on a professional beauty organization. So it's interesting that, when we talk now at the audit committee, it's all about cybersecurity, fraud, compliance, risk management, and, all this work that before was more related to accounting, finance, and, it's evolving clearly into risk management, cybersecurity, and other areas of the organization. And this means that we need to work very close with the legal counsel. We need to work with the IT group, CIO, CTO, and all these different organizations that in our case are very large, obviously, being a technology
Is that ever
provider.
tense, or is that ever difficult to work with all of the different leaders in the different sections?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, but what is true is sometimes we're responsible. And at the end of the day is making sure that both parties take it seriously, and we say, well, it's not my responsibility or it's your responsibility, it's our responsibility. And that's the area where you need to make sure that you work very close with all of them.
Dan, what about you? Do you think that it's similar, where you're dealing with a lot more of the different people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who's the person at the end of the day that's in charge of all this? Who's the one that has to take responsibility for it? It typically falls to me, and then of course to the CEO of the company as well. But we're a very small organization, so we tend to work very well together. So I have a lot of support and colleagues that give me a lot of support in that area.
What about you, Virginie? Do you find that it's ever difficult when you're having to kind of navigate and take responsibility for all of these different sections that maybe you didn't get, full cybersecurity training in school or wherever else?
I think it's actually part of also the opportunity, right? Because what's really and I'm like Roberto, I really strive on it because it's that the connection of everybody as well that has evolved over the years. So now we need to understand much better and comprehend really all the business processes much greater in order exactly to influence and to help all these other functions to drive the performance as well. So it's a common goal. I agree with what my colleagues just said. It's a common goal, a common responsibility, and it's actually very exciting to like I'm just going to give you a very tiny example that rebounds on what Dan said earlier. I'm working very closely right now with our CTO because rolling up now cafe and the new cafe concept goes along with new technology, new risk management challenges, and so we're really hand in hand and really talking every day and making sure that we and I support his analysis and choices.
So all of you are kind of referencing around the edges, technological changes. You talked about the CTO in particular, and I'm just wondering what some of the biggest technological advances have been in each of your businesses over the past 5 years. So why don't we start with you, Dan, since you're in the middle and you're always going to be sort of called on, second, otherwise.
Okay. Well, for us, we actually just rebuilt our whole technology infrastructure at Leading Hotels. It was all outsourced. We've now moved to Salesforce and Sales Cloud. We have the CRM now. We just instituted Tableau for all of our reporting. So we've spent and again, we sound like a big company with 400 hotels that we represent, but we're very small. We're only about 100 employees in the New York office. So we rebuilt this technology stack over the past 2 years, and now we're able to begin to do the things that the marketers want to do in our organization, which is reach to the individual consumers, personalize things, and help our hotels do a better job at selling to the customers that they want to bring in to their hotels.
Roberto, what about you?
So the number one thing that has been on our minds in the past 5 years, number one is the moving everything, all the infrastructure into the cloud. Being a technology provider is something that, working with our new CTO that joined a couple of years ago, I have enjoyed because as you said before, I enjoy a lot doing that and learning new things. And it's helping us not only understanding the business, but changing the business, making us more agile, and be prepared for the future of what is going to be coming on the new acquisitions, because we are a very acquisitive company. So this is the biggest area where we have put a lot of effort.
Moving everything to the cloud.
Yeah.
What about you, Virginie?
Yes, I think the biggest thing growing a global customer brand is really understand the customer behavior and the customer changes as they go along. As I was saying earlier, data is essential in the sense, and that has been the biggest change in my role as a CFO, is to actually help and enable everyone to read that information in a very different way. And now moving on to cafe, for instance, it's like understanding the traffic in a different way across all day parts. The traffic in the morning and then what people are looking for in the morning will be different than at lunch, will be different for an afternoon snack. I talked to you about the Craffle, which is our croissant that is now pressed on a waffle iron. You can fill it in with either savory.
It's the latest cronut.
Or with chocolate. And exactly like this is what you want for your breakfast sandwich or for your afternoon snack. And
she also says she has one of those every day. I also don't believe that.
And the data around this is essential. And I think for us to drive the performance is exactly having that data quickly available, actually live, and moving to the cloud is one of the enabler as well. And really understanding and perceiving all the patterns changes will enable this to be even more successful.
Do Do you use big data in the same kind of way, both of you? I mean, the sense of trying to predict different patterns or different, yes?
So I used to a lot in consumer goods. I mean, I had the same issues, and it was great. Here, where I am now, we have so much data. We process over 70 billion of spend across all our segments.
$70 billion?
$70 billion of spend. So it's a lot of data from fleet customers, from OTAs customers, and on the health side. So we have so much data, and what we are trying now to understand is what can we do with that data? The artificial intelligence, thinking about what is the next generation of that data for us. What can we do with it? Can we sell it? Can we resell it for other companies to use it? And there's so much to do with that as well.
What kind of data is this?
So it could be customer information. It could be, you go online and you book on Expedia.com a reservation, to having the profile of all these consumer individuals. You can do so many things with that we are trying to understand first, as we are migrating everything to the cloud, and then once you have all this data, how you can organize it and use it internally, but also potentially selling it for other companies. So
that kind of brings us to where we see some of the technological changes over the next 5 to 10 years, and that sort of seems like one area. Dan, is that something that you're looking at as well, sort of how you use the data? Is that a big potential source of change going forward?
100%. So as I mentioned, we built this technology stack. We're using all of these new systems to be able to do this, to reach the end consumer, to understand. So 70 billion, we do about 1 billion. So we have a lot less data than my colleague here next to me. But we still have a lot of data. We're looking at where are people traveling to? Are they going with their families? What are they going to play golf? Are they going to ski? And then be able to recommend to those consumers to go to a different leading hotel, sort of within what we refer to as our community of 400 hotels. So we use it to help direct the consumer to our other member hotels.
So, which brings us to something that you were talking about with this GDPR and privacy, and I'm just wondering, from a regulatory standpoint, how has that changed going, in the past 5 years? Where do you see it going, in the next 5, Virginie?
That's a very interesting question, and I share, like Dan, that part of the role has evolved because of this new data environment and, of course, the privacy that go with it. And I think part of the role is, to your point, it's very, very oriented now towards risk management and risk mitigations, and it will continue to evolve. My thinking is probably now with also artificial intelligence coming on board, and really what that's going to look like and what that's going to probably provide additional opportunities, but some challenges as well, I'm sure. These are the type of thing that we all need to think about and make sure, again, back to the role of being that enabler and that person that drives those conversations in the proper way with all the executive committee, actually.
Roberto, what about you? Because you were talking about how to use the data, and that comes with a flip side to that. It's the Facebook issue, although Facebook's doing just great, so it's not a problem. But what about that?
Fortunately or unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
We spend a lot of time on GDPR. I work very close with the legal counsel. And what we have seen, from 5 years to today, and as we move into the future, it's the budget that we have to dedicate and the resources that we will need to make sure that we have available to support, all these things that in the past were immaterial or people was not paying that much of attention, but as we are moving forward, it's going to be a significant amount of expense for all the organizations, and we need to be prepared, to take that cost and see how we can manage and mitigate those risks.
One thing I'm wondering about, because when I talk with different CFOs or executives and they talk about hiring, they say the hardest place to hire is with some of these technologically advanced areas, particularly with artificial intelligence, just given that the demand is so much greater than, frankly, even the supply. So I'm wondering, from your perspectives, how you find the talent that you need in order to move forward in these areas. And Dan, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So two areas. I have a team of analytics or analysts. We are fortunate because most of them were hired about 2 or 3 years ago. Super smart people that came on board with great experience, but now we're looking for someone that's going to help us with the voice of the customer. And it probably took us 6 or 9 months in order to find that person. I mean, we're lucky because we're in New York City, so therefore there's a lot of talent there. But even so, going through recruiters and such to be able to find these kind of people. The other one is in the IT area. IT doesn't report directly into me, but of course I have a say in what goes on there. And to find the IT talent, even if it's just developers or the people just to keep the lights on in the IT area, it's just incredibly difficult these days.
Roberto?
Well, I have to completely agree because we have, and I was talking last week with my CTO, we have 140 openings. As we speak, I mean,
140 openings?
Openings on the tech group, no? On data analyst, infrastructure, anything. And, there's so much demand and the economy is doing so well that, it's been very difficult to really find the right talent that also not only, they do what you want them to do today, but also that they have the mindset to think about what is coming in the next 3 to 5 years. So, we are having, it's been tough in the past, I would say, year and a half to get good talent, but also the amount of talent that you need on these specific areas. Yeah.
Virginie?
Yeah, no, for me, one element, and I fully agree with both Dan and Roberto, I think it's challenging to hire to a specific technical skill set. That said, knowing that things are going faster than ever, one element that I'm looking forward to when I hire is the curiosity. Because at the end of the day, we need people. Again, I'm back to my thing around enabling and connecting. What I'm looking forward is for people that are curious and eager to learn, and that are getting themselves ready for the next new thing. Because what's true today, what's the cloud today, what will be the cloud tomorrow, and how AI will play into the cloud on its own. So that's also the part of the soft skills that I'm looking forward to when I'm thinking about those challenges as of today.
So talking about technology, why don't you pull out your technological devices? Why don't we get a poll started so that we can let you do it while we continue the conversation. The question for this particular poll is, what is your top priority in 2019? And the answers are focus on scalable automation. So we're talking about tech advancements, proactive approach to security, build a data-driven culture, what we were just talking about, attract digital talent to drive innovation, what we were just talking about, and cloud migration, also what we were just talking about. Please select your decisions, but while they are doing that, why don't we go around and pull our fantastic panel. Virginie, what is your top priority among these?
I think build a data-driven culture, and probably because I'm in that customer global brand type of environment.
What about you, Dan?
I'm going to have to say the same thing as Virginia because of the technology that we've just built, and that's what we want to begin to use and be able to reach those consumers in the future.
I will go with the cloud.
All right.
Because, it's something very, very critical for us.
Just so that you know, when you said that,
Yeah.
in real time, it went up a little bit. So somebody was like, all right, I got to go with that. So, you're a change agent. I do want to shift gears a little bit to geopolitical risk because we talk about it every day, all day. And with respect to trade tensions and some of the trade battles and tariffs that we talk about every day ad nauseum. I'm just wondering how they affect your business, if at all. And Roberto, why don't we start with you?
Well, it affects us in multiple ways. Obviously, we are in multiple countries around the world, so currency fluctuation is critical for us. Not only because we have different subsidiaries, but within the U.S., as we talked before with Dan, one of our big customers is Expedia. 60% of their volume is outside of the U.S., so currency is critical for us. The second thing is interest rates. We are a very acquisitive company. We have a lot of debt on our balance sheet, but also we have a lot of receivables on the working capital side. So interest rates impact us significantly, up or down. So I would say to you, those are the two key areas of big focus for us. No?
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, for a company like us, the tariff situation is not affecting us at all. The thing that we worry most about is, when the next recession is going to come. Is it going to come in the United States? Is it going to start in Europe? The good news for us is that because we have 400 hotels all over the world and offices all over the world, if one area sort of falters a little bit, then we know that we're okay with the rest of the ones around the world. So it's not as big a thing for leading hotels.
And a little bit similar to Dan, we are a global business as well. We are present in 100+ countries. So unfortunately, with that type of presence, a change is actually a day in and day out thing. The opportunity is also that with the assortment of products that we have, we can be local and global at the same time. And I'm going to take the example of the croffle again. You can have a ham and cheese in New York, but maybe in Japan, that's not what's going to be really what the local customer taste will be, and then that becomes a local product. So we have, I think, a little bit of the best of both worlds, being global and a local product as well.
So Dan raised sort of the next point where I was going to go, which is the global slowdown that people are worried about and have been worried about it since 2009, and still hasn't materialized fully, but we do seem to be having some sort of slowing in certainly the economic data that's coming out. And I'm just wondering, from your perspectives, from the financial data that's coming in, are you seeing any evidence of a slowdown? Virginie.
The beauty about what we sell is we sell happiness.
I peddle in tragedy. You peddle in happiness. Love it.
It's true, though. So there's always a good occasion for either a gifting proposition or a day in, day out. Yes, of course, it stays always in the back of your mind. You want to be ready. You want to understand where that will come from. But between the combination of being that size of a global business and having an extension of your product assortment does help you prepare, I guess, in a different way.
Dan?
Well, I like to think that we sell happiness as well.
Don't we all?
At these amazing hotels. But in all seriousness, no, we haven't felt the effect, luckily. The other thing is that our travelers obviously are very affluent. The thing that I see, and I mean, I've been at the company for 20 years, is if the US stock market dips in any way, it's amazing how it reverberates where people just start canceling their reservations.
Really?
Now, if it's as of late where it's down a day and back up the next day, that doesn't affect us.
So it's not President Trump tweets and then people cancel their vacations?
I don't want to talk about him. So if it's elongated kind of downward spiral in the stock market, we see a huge effect there. I mean, 60% of our clients come from the United States that travel to the rest of the world.
Roberto?
Luckily, we haven't seen anything yet. I mean, we're a company, especially on the fleet segment and on the travel segment, we are very sensitive to the macroeconomic trends. Luckily, today we have not seen any slowdown on the economy, and hopefully that continues. But it's been interesting to see for how long this economy is going to keep going at this pace.
How do you hedge against a downturn?
So for us, when we go through the strat planning, a couple of years ago, we started doing the recession scenario. And because we are very sensitive on credit losses, interest rate, fuel price sensitivity, the way we have done a lot of planning on how these three variables play for us, and making sure that we don't lose the sight of our vision, which is to double the company every 5 years. And if you keep that in mind, you may have a small dip during 12, 18 months, but our business recovers quickly. And what we need to make sure is that through our investors, our shareholders, and also internally with management and with our board, we don't lose the sight that the vision has to stay there, and we need to continue focus on that. No? Because sometimes we try to think on the short term and make some cuts or make some adjustments, when the reality, in our case particularly, the vision has to stay there and continue on that path.
Virginie, what about you? How do you hedge against?
It's a very good question. I'm a little bit like Roberto through strat planning exercises and what if scenarios. You do put all these questions on the table and assess how you want to mitigate. I think for me, and that's part of the evolution of the role of the CFO exactly, is by understanding much better and greater the processes that the enterprise go through to really execute on a plan. It's all about when we need to pull and push the levers and when is the right timing for what investment. So that's always what I look at when I do the strat planning is really what and when, and this is where you pull and push and do your what-if scenarios.
So one of the poll questions was about data automation, and I'm wondering, people talk about the rise of the robots and how everybody's not going to have a job and robots are just going to be doing everything for us, and I'm just wondering from your function, how do you actually view automation, and how are you incorporating that into your plans over the next few years for your businesses? And why don't I start with you, Jan?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Certainly, it's going to be part of the accounting function, the IT function, all of those areas. We've begun to do small things. Again, being a small company, small things like no longer paying our vendors. We use the American Express card, so then we can have our executives travel all over the world on miles and things of this nature, to automate those kinds of payment structures, as well as because we're a global company, helping our offices to automate. I mean, we have some offices around the world that are 5, 7 people kind of thing, to help them to serve up the technology for them as well.
Roberto?
That's what we do. For companies like that. Internally, not through, especially with my group, what I always remind everybody is that automation is critical and it's very important, but we also need to remember that, with automation you don't get to the end goal. No? And before we're talking about the data, what can we do with the data, with brands, with customers? The data can be ordered, can be customized, but at the end of the day we need us and we need our people to enable and think about what can we do with it. And automation is a part of it, but I don't think that a robot, as you were saying, can, at least in the next few years, take over that mindset of of the human being, making sure that with the data we take the right decisions.
Virginie, what about you?
I think I'm looking forward to a little bit more of automation. I think that it can actually free the mind exactly to ask, to have the right time to ask ourselves the right questions, and to do really more of that scenarios modeling, all the what if, and how we use the what if. So I think it's actually, this is something I'm looking forward to, not necessarily robot taking my job, but I'm looking forward to what a robot can help me, could be faster in some decisions.
All right, we have 45 seconds left, so speed round. If you could take one class to learn about anything that you think would help you the most in the next 5 years, what would it be? Who would like to go first? Roberto looks like he's ready.
Yeah, I think I will go first. It's all related with the cybersecurity, because being a technology company for us is we get attacked from everywhere and from every angle, and having the learning that put me more up to speed, not just learning from our CTO, CIO, but having that vision, I will be that for me very beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to take one in culture, to understand our employees more, because we believe that they're our most important asset, and therefore understanding them, how to work better with them, I think would be something that would be really important.
Virginie?
I would say probably like Roberto, I would love to understand better cybersecurity and all the intricacies.
Well, that does it for this panel. Thank you so much. That was terrific. Thank you so much.